welcome to Llandow in South Wales for round 6 of the UK Kart Series. This popular circuit close to Cardiff hosts the 6th instalment of action from the series in 2025, and Jake Sanson is going to be bringing you all of the action, starting with the Honda R200 class. Jake.
Ashton Horsbull and Matthew Plant back on the front row of the grid again with Aaron Berridge and Rocco Geraghty, Oliver James Smith and Louis Comber, then Aidan Ingram, Peter Webster, Hendrix Bennett and Lewis Dean rounding out the top 10 in front of Rebecca Restel, then Carter Lundy and Hallie Findlater. It's a bone-dry, glorious Welsh sunny day. Off we go, charging away at Llandow into the first corner. Horsbull trying to make sure he stays in front of Matthew Plant as they skate their way through the set of left-handers. Diving on the inside, that's Ingram. He's tangled with Smith, and Geraghty and Comber were tangled up in it as well. Oh dear, it's Oliver James Smith who's come off worse there. So as the rest of the field scampers away, Oliver James Smith is left licking his wounds at turn 3. So everybody else is just trying to settle themselves down into a nice rhythm here. Ashton Horsbull leading the way. Second position, that is Matthew Plant, as Oliver James Smith is now trying to get his kart off the racetrack. And it's going to be red flags. Red flags. He's in a dangerous position. Now, because the red flag was flown halfway round the first lap, they will stop on the start-finish line, and because we didn't complete a full lap, they can completely restart the race in the original grid positions. Oliver James Smith is not going to be taking any further part in that, sadly, as the person involved in the red flag incident. So we'll restart minus Oliver James Smith. It's Horsbull and Plant once again from Berridge, Geraghty, then Louis Comber, Ingram, Webster, Bennett, Dean, Restel, Lundy, Findlater. We are racing at Llandow. And the Honda R200s charge their way through the first set of left-handers as we go into that tight apex where it all kicked off. 3 wide nearly as Berridge tries to go right round the outside of Ashton Horsbull, but Horsbull is not going to give him an inch, and so he holds the position. Matthew Plant trying to split them as they go through the next series of right-handers, and he's done so. So Matthew Plant has got himself back in his second position ahead of Aaron Berridge, who was leading for about 7 inches on the way through to turn 3. Very tight racing all the way through. Fabulous day, I have to say. This must be the first time in about 750 years that I've come to Llandow and not found myself knee-deep in sludge. Excellent stuff for the brilliant Welsh circuit that is a staple in the British club racing scene. Ashton Horsbull leading in the race, second in the points championship at the moment, so he's definitely got some deficit to make up as they work their way through the horseshoe for the first time in this race. They don't do it on the start because obviously in a staggered start it's too much of a conflagration as Berridge runs out wide and loses another place there, I do believe. So that's Louis Comber, who's now got into third position. The young man from Leicestershire has got ahead of Berridge. This is not good news for Aaron Berridge's title attack to find himself down in 4th position now behind Horsbull, Plant and Louis Comber. But Comber has been making some really decent inroads now and has been making such great progress recently. Down the back straight they go, up towards that final hairpin that leads them onto the tram lines and over the start-finish line once again. A very underrated circuit this. I've always really loved Llandow. It's a proper old-school, no-holds-barred race circuit with lots of great sweeping apexes. But as you can see, lots of great overtaking opportunities as well. So Matthew Plant, hailing from Retford in Nottinghamshire, trying to get himself into the lead of this race. And he's definitely giving Ashton Horsbull a bit of a run for his money this time, as Berridge is under threat here from Peter Webster. And Webster, of course, has got the hard-charging Rocco Geraghty on his tail. And Geraghty will want a little bit of recompense for getting caught up in that original start line incident where he and Comber, in fact, were involved in that little tussle with Oliver James Smith. Now, unfortunately for Smith, he couldn't restart. The other two and everybody else, of course, could. So that puts them in a much more advantageous position in terms of scoring points. So Horsbull leads, Plant, Comber, Berridge, Webster and Geraghty. Then it's Lewis Dean ahead of Aidan Ingram, Hallie Findlater and Hendrix Bennett, with Restel and Lundy still giving chase. Now Berridge is getting himself back on with this now. He's caught back up to Louis Comber. The thing is, when you've lost the position, you've then got to try and step up the attack and get back into the rhythm to make your move back into that position that you've lost. And it takes a little bit of time. It takes a little bit of rewiring almost with your head to sort of get yourself back into the zone. Through the S's and onto the back straight. This is great from Berridge. He really is lining up Louis Comber onto the back straight. Comber placing himself in the middle of the road though. So that's really good defence from Comber. He does not want Berridge to get back in front as they go across the line, and it is still Louis Comber looking for a podium. here ahead of Berridge, Webster and Rocco Geraghty. But the defensive moves are going beautifully at the moment for Louis Comber. He's definitely lining this up nicely. So Berridge is trying to get his way through. Left and right, he just can't find the move at the moment. So instead he thinks, right, well, I can't overtake him, so I'm gonna have to work with him to go back after Horspool and Plant. Maybe we can catch them if we work together before the end of this race, because they've managed to get a decent way in front of them now. That's almost a second and a half in terms of gap. So they've now got to think about the long-term gain of working together. And now there's 4 of them. This is really going to help. So Comber, Berridge, Webster, Geraghty. If they can join forces, they can go after the 2 up front. And look, there is a bit of a gap now between Horspool and Plant. And this is the 4-way scrap now for 3rd position. Comber, Berridge, Webster, Geraghty. But there's going to be a fine line, a tipping point for Aaron Berridge, where he realises, I'm stuck in 4th position, we're trying to get after the leading 2, and we can't catch them quick enough, so get out of the way, mate, I'll go for 3rd position, thank you. There's that tipping point in a race where you suddenly have to realise as a driver, the win is no longer on, I've just got to consolidate and grab as much from this race as I possibly can. Because when you've got Horspool and Plant pulling away like the way they are, that becomes a real difficulty for the others to combat. Now there are Webster and Geraghty having a great solid battle as well for 5th and 6th. Tucked up behind the 2, and now we can see that Berridge is starting to get irritated because Comber is starting to defend. Now this is where he starts to get himself backed up. Webster could have a go at Berridge before Berridge gets his way into 3rd position on Comber. And it's about now, really, as a driver, you start realising, right, the win is no longer possible. I've now got to go for 3rd position. So I've got to intimidate the man in front. So Comber still holding on to 3rd place. This is a much improved drive over the season for Louis Comber. He just seems to be getting better all the time. But Berridge has got his move on the inside line. He'll open the door and storms in on the right-hander. Plenty of speed and pace to get that done. Comber's going to try and come back at him though in the chicane, and Berridge will not give way. Oh, magnificent. It's almost 3-1 as they go off the turn. Geraghty's able to come back past 1 of them, past 2 of them. Can he make it 3? Will Geraghty get all 3 of them as they go down the back straight? He does! Rocco Geraghty with the move of the season from 6th to 3rd, and they almost go 4 wide over the straight, but back into the inside line comes Berridge to sneak back that 3rd position. Oh, it was wonderful from Geraghty. He just didn't quite have the momentum off the final hairpin to finish it all off. But Rocco Geraghty from 6th to 3rd in a heartbeat. Now he's left the door open again for Comber. Comber can get there, but Webster is now going to work with him. Geraghty fancies his chances now on the podium. Now he's had a sniff of it. He wants to go for the whole slice. So down the straight, up towards the S's, through the right, left, right, that will take them onto the railway straight, that back straight parallel to the finish line. And this is where things are going to get very racy. From this moment on, side by side again, Geraghty having to go the left side, because that's where Berridge is placing him. Can he tuck back for a switcheroo? Well, no, because he's going to have offense as Webster gets level with Comber. But yet again, it's a race of no resistance for 3rd position. Berridge hanging on from Geraghty. Comber holds on in front of Webster in the battle behind them. But the more that Horspool and Plant are given leave to run away, the more this becomes a race for the final step on the podium. The win is pretty much over now for these 4. Geraghty checking over his shoulder, just making sure that Comber isn't going to slang one up the inside to take over that 4th position. And that's why, because Berridge is now starting to defend. He knows the win is gone as well. So this is all about placing your kart in the best possible position to consolidate a potential bit of silverware. There is Plant running a beautiful solid race in 2nd place. And look at these 4 so close together for 3rd position. And we've got Ingram on his own in 7th place. And then we've got the quintet behind him. That's Findlater, Dean, Bennett, Restall, Lundy. So everybody running in a battle of some kind. Even Aiden Ingram on his own is trying to catch up to these 4 and make it a quintet himself. But for Ashton Horspool and Matthew Plant out in front, it is about as textbook a drive as you could ask from them at this level. But is Rocco Geraghty going to have one final magic trick up his sleeve? Can he pull the proverbial rabbit out of the hat? Berridge is doing his best to keep that kart as wide as a Buick again. Out of the dog leg. And along that back straight where you really start to build the speed. Geraghty thinking, shall I go the inside? Can I throw it up the inside? Yes, I can! And he's going for it on the inside of Berridge. Oh, they contact! And that's going to be enough for both Webster and Comber to get ahead. Let's look at it again. Geraghty has the move lined up. but he either turns in later than Berridge expected or Berridge turns in earlier than Geraghty expected. They bang wheels. He flies over the right side of Berridge's kart. Let's look at it again from the top angle, and he goes airborne, and that is enough for Comber and Webster to get ahead. They are in third and fourth. We're on the last lap, and this is all done and dusted for Ashton Horspool and Matthew Plant, but this blows the championship wide open because Aaron Berridge is out of it. Absolute disaster for Berridge. He scores no points today. So it's going to be a run for Ashton Horspool to the victory as the rest of the field are still battling away, but it's Horspool that comes through for the victory in fantastic fashion. Plant is second, and who's going to be third? It's going to be Louis Comber after a brilliant battle all the way to the death. No worries at all for him in front of Webster, Geraghty and Aidan Ingram. But what a dramatic start to the coverage here at Llandow as Horspool dominates from Plant and Louis Comber gets a top three finish ahead of Webster and Ingram. Hallie Findlay to P6 from Lewis Dean, Hendricks Bennett, Rebecca Restel and Carter Lundy. But on a day when the final is not finished by Aaron Berridge. What a dramatic turn of events. He leads the championship but ties on points with Ashton Horspool. Geraghty is not far away, but now it's neck and neck in the Honda R200 title fight. It's been a fairly dramatic start here at Llandow. Let's carry on in the Bambino comas. Jensen O'Connor and Buddy Dorr will be on the front row of the grid from Alfie Ward and Freddie Purnell. Then Noah Gallagher and Edward Rediford from Ray 30, Max West, Jasper Reed and James Talbot. In the Mighties, we only have four this time. Harry Voss, Stanley Thurston, Arthur Etherington and Oliver Reynolds. They'll go from a standing start and we charge away in the Bambino. They will move further forward. It's the comas that get away first. Then the Mighties will follow behind them. But with two different classes racing at the same time, it definitely gives us plenty of good battles to talk about. Buddy Dorr trying to get on terms with Jensen O'Connor nice and early. But so far, Jensen O'Connor has hit the front, and he is so good at getting himself into a neat rhythm early on in the race. So this could be yet another whitewash for him. Off go the Mighties. These are the electric kart categories. Harry Voss in front of Thurston Etherington and Oliver Reynolds. So the battle goes down to the back straight. Jensen O'Connor still running in the lead after a good start from his qualifying performance. Getting into this point, always very proud, an achievement for the youngsters, having worked all the way through the weekend to get you to the front end. But Buddy Dorr and Alfie Ward are still giving chase to Jensen O'Connor. Break turned into that hairpin where we saw Aaron Berridge spin off in dramatic fashion in the Honda R200s earlier on. But it's O'Connor from Dorr and Ward. Noah Gallagher has done a good job to get up into fourth position. And then it is Freddie Purnell from Edward Rediford, Ray 30, Max West, Jasper Reed and James Talbot. Interestingly, the fastest driver of the race on that first lap was actually Alfie Ward. So there are the Mighties getting themselves up to speed. Voss, Thurston, and then we're going to get the move on the inside, are we? As Oliver Reynolds challenged Arthur Etherington. Stanley Thurston running in second position still. But a good battle between those two. It was actually Etherington trying to get back on terms with Oliver Reynolds, I should say. Harry Voss now has the fastest lap in the Mighty class then, courtesy of leading the way. But there is a battle brewing in the Bambino comas. There's your leader, Jensen O'Connor. Not far behind him is Buddy Dorr. Noah Gallagher trying to put pressure on the three men up front, but Alfie Ward dropping back just a little bit now as they work their way through the first couple of laps. After setting the pace initially, Ward is now settling into the rhythm in third position. And no major surprises on the second lap. Jensen O'Connor is the fastest once again. Clear bit of track in front of him, and he can control the race a bit now in front of Buddy Dorr, who seems to have lost a little bit of time in the horseshoe, and that could be enough momentum for Alfie Ward to get back on terms. Here are the Mighties, running at the tail end of the field. They've got 5 karts in amongst them, so I think that might be young James Talbot, who's still learning about his craft. You've got to remember that this is club racing, essentially, in the world of karting. Yes, it is the UK Kart Series, so it does go all over the country. But as this is not an official British championship in the same way that Motorsport UK governs things, this is a bit more regional based. So you will get the odd newcomer making their debut in the championship and basically going up against the big guns of the championship and learning as they go. So with 2 classes racing each other on the circuit at the same time, each driver in each class has to focus on their own individual race victories. You're not going to see the Mighties overtake everybody in the Comas and grab the overall victory, but there's still going to be a little bit of pride on the shoulders of Harry Voss and Stanley Thurston, for example, if they can overtake a few of the Comas. And I've noticed that they've already got past James Talbot. They're now going to try and do the same thing to Jasper Reed. But there is a great little battle going on outside the top four. We've got O'Connor, Dorr, Ward and Freddie Purnell, and then we've got an amazing duel going on between Noah Gallagher, Rafe Verdi and Edward Riddiford. Here they are, just as we talk about them. There they are on track, and these three are having an amazing little squabble as they basically duke each other out. This is almost for the best of the rest title, as they know perfectly well that the rest of the field are pretty much now gone. They're not really going to catch them unless there's a bit of a Berridge style issue that we saw from the Honda R200s. So now they've just got to race each other and hope that they can entertain the crowds on their own. So Jasper Reed is going to be swept by Oliver Reynolds, the fourth and last of the Mighties. So that gives you an indication of the pace at the moment of the Mighties compared to some of the newer faces in the Comas. At this level, it's all about confidence and knowledge. The higher your knowledge, the greater your confidence becomes. And so you can do a little bit more with these cards, and you can understand a little bit more about what they'll give you when you put in that pressure. A little bit of defense there from Noah Gallagher in front of Rafe Verdi. He's got to be so careful though, because you go a little bit ultra defensive and you've got the two drivers right behind you wanting to get a little bit more from this race. So they will push that little bit harder to try and achieve something here. Tricky on the far side of the course. This is when you can really open up the taps, and I do get the sense that Edward Riddiford there in 7th position is getting a little bit frustrated now, staring at the back bumper of Rafe Verdi. He fancies his chances to get ahead. This is where rhythm is such an important part of racing. You've got to be so focused down this back straight. You can see a little bit of weaving as drivers try and figure out which move they're going to be in. The blue flag is stationary. Now it's important that when the slower kart is there on track, they have to stay on the racing line. Now, this is told to them in the driver's briefing. If the blue flag is shown to you, you stay on the racing line, but you don't make it difficult for the drivers around you. You've just got to keep your pace and keep on the racing line. The onus is on the drivers behind you to lap you by going around you, but you've got to stay predictable, and that is exactly what is going on here. So Talbot's doing what he's supposed to be doing, which is, as he's told, stay on the racing line, but he's now got Verdi, Riddiford and Harry Voss together, and Voss has been able to slip up the inside of Riddiford. Oh, a little bit of a wheel bang. Can Voss now get on the inside of Verdi? He does indeed. So he's been able to use that Excelsior knowledge that he's got of this Mighty kart to get ahead of some of the midfield runners in the Bambino Coma category. But there was nothing that James Talbot did there that was incorrect. He's got to stay predictable on the racing line. That's how it works when you're lapping traffic. So O'Connor leads the way then from Buddy Dorr, Alfie Ward, then Purnell, Gallagher and Harry Voss. There is the 77. That is the man in 4th position in the Mighty category. Oliver Reynolds trying to get back on terms with Arthur Etherington in the hope of a 3rd position run. And as we go side by side, that is Riddiford getting on the inside of Talbot with Arthur Etherington not far away. There is Reynolds hoping to get close to the podium, but I think he's going to run out of time to do that. Meanwhile, out in front, it is going to be Jensen O'Connor, surely, that will take a dominant victory here. There are blue flags again, as Max West is now having to get aside for Jensen O'Connor. But again, he doesn't need to rush this. The onus is not on him to get out of the way. That's well done there from Max West. Stayed predictable on the racing line, so Jensen O'Connor didn't trip over him. He knew where Max West was going to go. There's a lot of faith that you have to put in these back markers, and both Max doing exactly what he should have done by staying on the racing line, and Jensen taking the initiative to stay out in front. So very mature moves from both men there. But Jensen O'Connor, absolutely dominant out in front here at Llandow. This has been a year where he's taken every single opportunity he's been given. It hasn't been a perfect 2025 so far by any stretch of the word for Jensen O'Connor, but every time he's been in an opportunity to take advantage of the situation and pull out in front, he has grabbed it with both hands. So Jensen O'Connor will come through the hairpin for the last time, and he will see the checkered flag first here at Llandow. It's a great run for Jensen O'Connor. Checkered flag is in the air. Buddy Dorr is going to come through in 2nd place. Well and truly conquered. There he goes, 3rd position for Alfie Ward, and he's very happy indeed with that. And rightly so, in front of Freddie Purnell. So a great performance from Jenson O'Connor. Buddy Dorr second in front of Alfie Ward and Freddie Purnell, with Noah Gallagher in fifth ahead of Ray Furdy, Edward Rediford, Max West, with Jasper Reed and James Tolbert. In the Mighties, it's a victory for Harry Voss once again ahead of Stanley Thurston, Arthur Etherington and Oliver Reynolds. In the points battles, it definitely shakes things up a bit. In Bambino Coma, Jenson O'Connor's lead is just 41 points over Alfie Ward. Harry Voss is almost double that, 80 points clear now of EJ Dera. Well, exciting stuff then from the Comas and the Mighties. On to the Honda Cadet 200s. Front row of the grid for Francesco De Caro and Henry Colborne, then Bradley Sutton and Daniel Ziad from Alistair Saunders and Nikita Roberts. Archie Rutter, Charlie White, Jaden Bond and David Sioaka are the ones who run out in the top 10. 11th place for Sam Blamey in front of Zaya Ono, and then it's Austin Dowell alongside Phoebe Shelton. So the competitors are ready for another exciting start here in the beautiful baking Welsh countryside. Let's do it! The racers from 8 years of age get under starters' orders here at Llandow, and they will charge their way through to the S's, out through the horseshoe. From a standing start, you can go straight through to the horseshoe. On a rolling start, you skip it on the first lap. But as the drivers are well versed in how to get under starters' orders by this time in the season, they are perfectly fine to get through those first couple of corners without incident. And no problem at all for Francesco De Caro. Great to see him making a big chance come his way here by getting himself into that pole position for the final in the first place through the heats. And now, despite the pressure on him, he is taking it to Henry Colborne in a season where Colborne has been very much the man to beat on several occasions through the course of this season. But here at Llandow, Francesco De Caro has really turned the developmental corner, and he is charging. Is this going to be his day? De Caro, Colborne. Then it is Brad Sutton ahead of Ziad, Saunders and Nikita Roberts. No problem at all as the drivers work their way further forward. Nikita Roberts starting in P6 and staying there for the time being. A nice tame start, but I would expect a bit more from them as they work their way through. Bit of a run wide there from Dan Ziad. So Alistair Saunders may get a chance to move further forward here. But it's definitely looking pretty hungry as they work their way through. Look at how quickly Francesco De Caro is starting to get away. Colborne has fallen into the clutches of Sutton and Ziad. Then Saunders, Roberts, Rutter, White, Bond and Blamey. So they're going to hop and skip over these curbs as they try and get as close to the lead as possible. But could we see Brad Sutton make the bid for second position? No, he's way too smart for that. He knows that if he makes the overtaking move now, any chance of the victory is gone. So he's got to work with Henry Colborne to get back after Francesco De Caro, who sets a new fastest lap in his bid to get away from the chasing pack. A bold start then so far in the Honda 200 Cadet category. This first section of the course here at Llandow is kind of a mirror reversal of the opening sector of the Shanghai Grand Prix circuit, albeit scaled down to karting form. It is a very tricky and very open and flowing part, and that's what happens when you get it wrong. Dan Ziad drifts out wide and somehow does not lose the position. Good reactions there from Dan Ziad. Doesn't let himself get crossed up, and is able to control the rhythm before Alistair Saunders can get close enough to snatch the place away. What that does do, though, is it gives Colborne and Sutton a tiny bit of breathing space when they needed it most. And you can see for yourself it's starting to work. They are gaining on De Caro. Have they got time to catch him before the checkered flag? New fastest lap of the race for Henry Colborne, thanks to the assistance from Bradley Sutton as they chase after Francesco De Caro. But you can see that as Sutton now replicates the pace of Colborne by setting his own fastest lap, they're all working in unison to get after the race leader. De Caro leads, Colborne second, Sutton third, and after that little trip off onto the grass, Dan Ziad has got it back into position again. So Daniel Ziad in P4. He's going after the leading trio, and he looks pretty comfortable with it at the moment. He's got good pace. So as they go through, oh yeah, Ziad looking so much stronger than he was in the first phase. He's really settled down into the rhythm now. Saunders P5, Nikita Roberts P6. Great battles going on further back. We can see for ourselves just how tight it is between Bond, White, Archie Rutter and Sam Blamey. Then a little bit of time back to Shelton, Dowell, Chuaka and Ona. So it's going to be very tight all the way down. You end up getting battles within battles in this category, just about how paced evenly it is. White, Rutter and Blamey having a nice little duel here for 8th position. Look at the back end of these karts as they start to slide. You've got to chuck the kart in if you want to get good purchase through these fast sweeping apexes, but it's so easy to let the back end travel and drift. If you just catch one wheel over the curb, it's going to spit you out to the sidelines, and you've got to try and wrestle with it to get it back to the racing line the way you want. Right, left, right, and back onto the railway straight on the far side of the course now for Francesco De Caro, the race leader, ahead of Henry Colborne, Bradley Sutton and Dan Ziad. And it doesn't matter what they throw at De Caro today, he's just got the measure of this kart on this circuit. This is his playground. So into that first horseshoe section once again through the right, tighten up through the left. The back end can travel a little bit as you kick it back in for the right square. And then this long flowing section of left-handers that tighten up, as you can see here, into that long flowing section of rights. And the man who's on the move is Brad Sutton. Sutton's put another fastest lap down and is going after Colborne. Colborne can't stay with De Caro. This is great news for Francesco De Caro. Worrying times potentially for Henry Colborne, who's had it much his own way this year. It's not been dominant, but he's certainly had things very much how he likes it in general in 2025. But this weekend, well, it's a little bit different, as he's got a lot of pressure from Bradley Sutton. And certainly Francesco De Caro has made him work a lot harder this weekend than he would have liked to have done. But Daniel Ziad is not far away from the podium either. So as De Caro continues to lead up front, there's still a very tough mission for second place here between the three men giving chase. And Henry, Brad and Dan are doing everything they can to close up to Francesco De Caro. But will they work in unison, or is one of them going to think, look, I can't win this race, I'm too far back, and I'm just going to go rogue on my own and go for it? It's very difficult to know at this time in the race whether it's going to be all for one and one for all, or every man for himself. So we'll see how it's going to be utilised on the back straight. You do wonder if Sutton is going to make the move on Colborne, or whether Ziad is going to make his move on Sutton at some point. De Caro is there, he's not far away from them, and they have got an opportunity to close up and make a move if they so choose to, but they've got to work in unison. They cannot afford to be selfish here. You've got to work in a conglomerate. It's got to be a group effort to go after the race leader here. It does look as though in the slower sections in particular, these guys are able to be a little bit smoother at times than De Caro, but De Caro's just got such ability and confidence through the faster sweepers. That's where he's really strong here at Llandow. He continues on as they go through to the dog leg, leading up to that back straight. So Ziad is definitely gaining in ground on Bradley Sutton. Will he go for the move on Sutton before Sutton gets his bid on Colborne? Colborne's closing right up on De Caro and braking as well. So I don't think Francesco De Caro's got this 1-1 just yet. Still plenty to do and still plenty to go after. And this is the last lap, so they're out of time. They're out of excuses. They've now got to bring their A game to the table. There's Roberts ahead of Bond. And then Charlie White, Archie Rutter and Sam Blaney still having a great battle, those three. Yeah, not quite close enough to De Caro, are they? Colborne's given it everything he's got, but he's just not quite able to close up. Francesco De Caro is so smooth out of these turns, and that's where he's really been able to turn it on in Llandow this weekend. He's just been so strong compared to what we even see from him regularly. So this is a turning point for Francesco De Caro. A little bit of a break-up of the battle there between Bond, White and Rutter, as one of them seems to have gone off the road. But out of the final turn, it will be Francesco De Caro who seals the victory ahead of Henry Colborne and a jubilant Bradley Sutton bending off from Daniel Ziad. Saunders will be P5 ahead of Nikita Roberts. Excellent run up front though for Francesco De Caro. It's definitely been a jubilant race for him. Jaden Bond P7, then it is going to be White ahead of Rutter and Blamey in the top 10. So a fabulous race then from Francesco De Caro, a coming of age moment. Only a quarter of a second ahead of Colborne, but that's all it needed to be. Sutton third ahead of Ziad, Saunders, Roberts, Bond, White, Blamey and Phoebe Shelton coming through in 10th position at the post-race checks. It was Shelton who was promoted into 10th position. De Caro now has the championship lead over Colborne with Charlie White and Nikita Roberts giving chase. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens when their championship battle resumes later in the year. Well, from pole position, it's going to be a tough race for Reece Cranston to hold on to alongside Lorenzo Martin, Teddy Hall and Ian Bagger, then Drew Rout and Sebastian Thompson, and the top 10 rounded out by Dan Kadaszynski and Joe East, with Charlie Brooks and Isaac Hobbs, then Rowan Marshall, Finley Worthy and Olivia Hall, all set to give us an amazing Junior Pro Kart final as we get under starters orders now, and off we go through the first part of the course. A couple of drivers running very deep as they miss the horseshoe on the first lap, and then they continue on the far side, but it is Reece Cranston as the field knits its way through without too many difficulties, I hope. One or two drivers running very wide off the start. I don't think it was a particularly fast start for the even side of the grid as it was to the inside line, the odd numbered side of the grid. I think we've got a couple of slow starters there. Maybe Baggett, Thompson and East having a bit of a headache on the initial start. So there could be a few drivers here having to make up some ground. Certainly there's a good battle going on between Drew Rout and Sebastian Thompson there. So those two are still together as they were initially off the start. And on the inside line goes Sebastian Thompson, dives into the hairpin to try and move up into 5th position. He's still got Drew Rout all over him. But it's Cranston, Hall, Martin, Kadaszynski, Thompson and Drew Rout. Then Joseph East ahead of Rowan Marshall, Charlie Brooks and Isaac Hobbs. Then it's Worthy and Ian Bagger. So it was a big problem there on the start for Ian Bagger, dropping all the way back to 12th position after what was originally P4. I thought there were one or two drivers on that far side of the course that got a miserable start. So big problems there then on the initial launch for Ian Bagger, who for some reason just did not get away particularly well. So the rest of the race now is going to be a bit of a fight back for him. I wonder how much ground he can really hope to make up though from P12 in what is still a very competitive Junior Pro Kart Extreme field. So down to the hairpin. All going well for Reece Cranston. It's so important here at Llandow, particularly in these Junior Pro Karts, to get into that first corner first. You don't get many second chances at a dominant lead here because it's so competitive. And that psychological boost, that little kick in the teeth that first corner defeat takes away from you if you don't get through in the first position, it can really leave you hampering and trying to salvage something for the rest of the race. Reece Cranston definitely doing a good job into that first corner. Hall and Martin already battling away for second position. Looks like we're going to go wheel to wheel down that back straight. Up to the chicane. Oh, it's getting quite close indeed now in the battle further back. This is Joseph East still squabbling away with Rowan Marshall, and that tightens things up behind. Brooks is there, Hobbs is there, and Worthy is there. So there's still so much squabbling left to be done in this race, not just at the very front of the field, but also in the background. So many great challenges to come in this race. Love this category. There are always battles within battles. As out in front, it's still all good for Reece Cranston. But here comes Lorenzo Martin. All over the back of Teddy Hall. He'll dive to the inside line and he'll squeeze up alongside. It's forceful from Lorenzo Martin. Teddy Hall puts his hand in the air. Come on, mate, what are you playing at? And as he works his way through, Teddy Hall comes back at him and Lorenzo Martin chops across again. What are you doing? This isn't racing, it's boxing, as far as Teddy Hall is concerned. Well, Lorenzo Martin may think otherwise. Look, we're racing, mate. If you leave a gap, I'm going to go for it. So Reece Cranston leads the way. Martin in second now from Teddy Hall. Then Kadaszynski and Sebastian Thompson. In a race battle where everybody wants a bit of silverware, there's always going to be differences of opinion. And certainly in the battle between Martin and Hall, one's going to say that was fair racing and I got ahead. The other's going to say you pushed me aside twice. So it's going to be Kadaszynski and Thompson giving chase. Here's the battle for P6. East, Rout, Marshall, Brooks and Hobbs. And then joining in at the back of that queue is Finley Worthy. So now there's 6 of them, all trying to claim the best of the rest title behind the top 5. Bit of a problem for Olivia Hall and for Ian Bagger. I wonder if Bagger's problems have turned into a mechanical issue. Oh, and running wide there. Off the turn, that's going to be a big headache, as unfortunately it's all gone wrong for Charlie Brooks. He's going to drop back behind Hobbs and potentially even behind Finley Worthy as well. You don't want to be making mistakes like that, and I'm sorry to say that Ian Bagger is indeed out of this race, I'm afraid. So Ian Bagger with a technical problem putting him out of contention, and then it's got worse and that's put him out of the race altogether. What a shame. He could have been on the podium here, Ian Bagger. Meanwhile, though, behind the podium runners, we've got Joe East battling with Rout. Rout trying to work his way through the left-hander and then tuck in for the inside of the right-hander. He's going to find a gap. He'll try and get through on the inside line of Joe East, and there's contact! Oh, it's all gone wrong there. And Joe East is going to lose a couple of positions. I wonder if he's got big damage, because Joe East is suddenly sliding around all over the shop. Oh, he's plummeting. He's falling through the field like a stone through a wet paper bag. And Joe East has got big damage. Yep, he's going to pull right off the race circuit. Too much of an issue there with Drew Rout, and I'm afraid it's Joseph East's race gone in cinders. What a shame. So Cranston leads Martin, Hall, Kadaszynski and Sebastian Thompson. Then it is Drew Rout up to 6th place ahead of Marshall, Hobbs, Brooks and Worthy ahead of Olivia Hall, with Joe East now joining Iron Bagger on the sidelines. So bitter disappointment then for Bagger, bitter disappointment too for Joseph East. This isn't over yet, folks. Reece Cranston still leads from Martin, Hall, Kadaszynski and Thompson, but this battle further back has still got plenty of legs in it. Rout, Marshall, Hobbs, Brooks and Worthy ahead of Olivia Hall, and I think this one could go all the way down to the wire. These guys around Reece Cranston are not careful, it's going to be a whitewash for the 43. Martin in second, Teddy Hall in third position, but we're not done. There's still a lot of battles to come in this one, and you can see that there is a real thirst for progress up at the sharp end of this field here, as Sebastian Thompson is all over the back of Dan Kadaszynski for 4th position. He's seeking his chance here, weaving from the left to the right, to the left to the right, looking for his gap. Kadaszynski looks over his shoulder. He knows that Thompson's going to be ever present, but he's got to outfox him. He doesn't want to spend too long looking over his shoulder, because that's an invitation, and there goes the gap. No, you don't, goes Dan Kadaszynski. Slices across on Sebastian Thompson. I don't think so, sir. If you're going to make an overtaking move on me, it's going to have to be a lot better than that. Down to the hairpin. Tucking in through the right-hander, back down the straight, over the line, and into another lap. Through the horseshoe. No room at the end for Sebastian Thompson yet. Seeks through the left. Seeks again through the right as Cranston leads Martin, leads Teddy Hall. And then these two, Kadaszynski versus Thompson. And Thompson is getting frustrated. Sat behind Dan Kadaszynski. And you can see that there's a slight variation in the racing line between these two. The difference could well come. Up at the inside, you've got to squeeze through a very tiny gap if you want to get ahead of Dan Kadaszynski. And he's not giving any space, he doesn't have to. Sebastian Thompson back to the drawing board, come up with something else, because there are no cheap overtakes past Kadaszynski today. Down that back straight once again. Going to be very interesting to see if the move comes. Cranston staying present in front of Lorenzo Martin, who's actually picked up the pace a little bit here. Teddy Hall in third, and then these two continuing their duel. Kadaszynski versus Thompson. And it's Drew Rout, Marshall, Hobbs, Worthy and Brooks. Thompson still looking for that move. Kadaszynski still wide enough for the moment. He's clearly been playing his London bus trickery, trying to make that kart as wide as possible. Still keeping it honest. Thompson again to the inside, not quite with the momentum of the turn to make it work in his favour. So they go along towards the chicane once again. Right, left, then tuck the kart back out to the right-hander and then onto that back straight. Got to be close enough to really dive in on Kadaszynski. If you want to make that work, he's going to come from a long way back. Oh, Sebastian, you do not want to get yourself into hot water with Dan Kadaszynski able to just turn across you like that. It costs him a chance to go for the move again, I think, in the first part of the lap. But he's going quickly enough that he can gain that momentum once more on Dan Kadaszynski. He's learning well here, Sebastian Thompson. And the more these two squabble, the easier it is for Teddy Hall to consolidate that third position. So not much to really cause a panic for the top three, but certainly for pride as much as anything else. Thompson wants to get ahead of Kadaszynski. I think he knows what side of the bread his butter is going to be on now. He knows that the win is probably gone. But this is the great battle further back in the pack. We've got Rout, Marshall, Worthy, and then Hobbs versus Brooks for 9th place. Here comes Thompson. He's finally got the reading right on the inside line, and he tucks back for the apex to chop across on Dan Kadaszynski. There's no retaliation. Perfect timing as well, because they've gone into the last lap. That is absolutely nailed to the mast by Sebastian Thompson. He couldn't have timed that move any better. Excellent work. Now he's just got to try and hold on to this for the rest of the final lap in front of a resurgent Dan Kadaszynski. So Cranston's going to get the win here from Lorenzo Martin and Teddy Hall. But can Kadaszynski bounce back? I'm not so sure he can. Now that Sebastian Thompson's got ahead when he did, He's got the momentum. He's got the sway on his side. So down the back straight, Reece Cranston has absolutely commanded the troops here into the final hairpin, and he will charge for the line ahead of Lorenzo Martin. It's a win for Cranston. Martin in second place, third place for Teddy Hall, and what a battle between Thompson and Kadaszynski, but it's Thompson that beats down Kadaszynski to the line. So Daniel Kadaszynski will have to come back for another attempt at a podium later in the season. Rout hanging on for P6 in front of Marshall, Worthy, Hobbs and Charlie Brooks. So just confirming the result then, Reece Cranston taking the victory ahead of Lorenzo Martin and Teddy Hall, Thompson in P4 ahead of Kadaszynski, then Rout, Roman Marshall, Finley Worthy, Charlie Brooks and Isaac Hobbs. But what a shame we didn't get to see Joseph Hall or Ian Bagger make the finish. The last driver home was Olivia Hall. Ian Bagger still leads the championship, but as you can see, it's only by 8 points to Dan Kadaszynski, with Rowan Marshall only a point ahead of Josh Sullivan and Sebastian Thompson gaining ground on them both. Well, we all know the only way to go bigger after Junior Pro Kart is Senior Pro Kart. Aaron Alexander and George Ludwell on the front row of the grid for this one, from Connor Lucas and Ike Needham, Zach Dawson and James Stradwell, Danny Bean, Connor McCarthy, Aaron Lord and Oliver Hall in the top 10. Then it's Oliver Clegg, who is next to Matthew Hushby, Jack Dunbobbin and Riley Bowen, Reese Bright and Gary Evans, Max Mannion and Dominic Needham from Finley Marshall and Alfie Wilkes. Rounding out the field, it'll be Harrison Johns and Kerry Croft, from Andrea Bahari Mastieta, Archie Cotton and Mick Lord. Let's do this. We charge for the first corner. Terrible start from the even side of the grid. So it's Alexander, Lucas and Dawson that managed to get the best start as we charge for the first couple of corners and diving through on the inside line, trying to make up the progress. Ludwell trying to get back in there as several drivers are now finding problems, and there's contact. Several carts going around the 75. Pirouettes, that's Finley Marshall having got two carts together on the road. That is Andrea Bahani Mastieta and Gary Evans, who have locked together 7 and 13. That's Evans and Bahari Mastieta. So it's a real mess on the way through this first lap. A very dramatic start here at Llandow, and it's Aaron Alexander who leads from Connor Lucas, then George Ludwell and Zach Dawson, as the rest of the field has got through in a relatively sensible position here. They go through turn 1 onto the second lap. Got quite a bit of a shuffle of the deck here from several karts. Several drivers obviously falling back down the order as a result of some of the incidents that have gone on that first lap. Oh, it looks like there's another incident on the way through the first chicane, and the marshals are running to the scene of it. Oh, we're going to go red flags immediately, red flags. So the race is being stopped, so just a little bit too chaotic on this occasion. I think the Senior Pro Kart drivers were just a little bit too zealous, a little bit over-eager on this occasion. So it looks as though the race is going to be stopped and the drivers will come to a halt where they are on the back part of the circuit. So that's just to allow the safety teams and the marshals and the officials to conduct the job they need to do to get the circuit race ready. Well, I think everybody's adrenaline was running just a little bit too high on that occasion for the start here at Llandow.
Well, after the incident, which was out of shot of the cameras, the drivers would have a discussion about it, voicing their opinions. The clerk of the course would voice his opinions about it, and after a short driver's briefing in the middle of the circuit, the race would get underway again. Here's Jake.
Second time of asking then, as Alexander and Ludwell will go to the start line, and we are racing, and yet again that even side of the grid has not got a decent launch. It's even worse for Ludwell and Needham than it was the first time, as Dawson is already challenging Lucas, but he runs wide through turn 2, and that costs him a clear run at the podium as he drops back into 5th position. So it's a perfect start for Aaron Alexander, with Connor Lucas giving chase as the rest of the field shuffles the deck big style. 2 or 3 karts wider to some of these apexes, although they've tidied it up a little bit, certainly not so much flotsam and jetsam as there was on the original start. Everybody's certainly giving it gusto on this first lap to try and gain as many positions as possible. This is excellent news though for Aaron Alexander, the 07 up front, able to control the pace from the first border call. He leads here in front of Lucas, Ludwell, then Danny Bean and Zach Dawson, with Ike Needham down into 6th position ahead of Aaron Lord and Jack Dunbobbin. No worries at all for Alexander. He leads the way here, and it's all going to be about Connor Lucas following in pursuit. Although Zach Dawson did give us a little bit of damage limitation there, he dropped behind Ludwell and Danny Bean on that first lap. So So that makes things particularly difficult for him to retaliate. And we can see already that there are some decent battles starting to brew. We've got Needham, Lord, Jack Bobbin has made up a couple of places. McCarthy was lucky because he was one of the drivers caught up in that first lap incident on the original start. So he's now been able to come back in this second attempt of the race and work his way forward, and that's a problem for Dawson. Dawson's going to lose 2 places here, and that is Danny Bean and Ike Needham through, because Dawson had got through originally. Now Danny Bean's got him, and Ike Needham's got him back as well. So the green machine, very distinguishable from the rest of the field. Zach Dawson dropping into 6th position. He's got to try and fight his quarter back into contention again. But so far, it's Alexander versus Conor Lucas up front, and only George Ludwell can really hang with them in this early part of racing. You've got to be so careful how intensely you battle in the early stages up in that top 5, because you don't know how much time you're going to cost yourself. The win may already be gone. So since the original start, we've only got 20 of the original 25 drivers running in this race. Is up on the inside line. That's going to be a move for P4. Big dive from Needham, and Dawson's going to go on the inside of Danny Bean as well. But Danny Bean holds his line to only cost himself 1 position there to drop back into 5th position rather than 4th. There's a yellow flag waving. I think that's for Finley Marshall, who is the 5th member of the retirees. As on the inside, Dawson gets back ahead of Danny Bean. Manages to make it work. Now, that wasn't under the yellow flags. He had already passed the scene of that moment as Finley Marshall drops out to join Ollie Clegg, Matthew Hooshby, Dominic Needham and Mick Lord on the sidelines. The latter 4 did not take up the restart after their involvement in the first start incident. But a fascinating duel as Alexander now leads Lucas, Ludwell, Needham, Dawson and Danny Bean. And there is a little bit of a gap between Alexander and Conor Lucas, but not by much. This race isn't done yet by any means at all. Needham P4, Dawson P5, then Bean, Lord, McCarthy, Drabwell, Dunbobbin, Mannion, Reese Bright and Oliver Hall. They are all very close in together. We know how tightly competitive Senior Pro Kart Extreme can be. It's one of the most fiercely competitive classes in British kart racing. Never mind at national championship level, just throw a whole bunch of Senior Pro Karts onto the racetrack and let them do their stuff. In through the far side of the course, they now try and get their way back further forward. A little bit of defensive tactics in this midfield as we watch the duel currently going on between Conor McCarthy and James Drabwell. So Drabwell trying to get his move on Conor McCarthy down the back straight. That is going to be the battle for 8th position if he makes his dive on the inside line. So you've got to time it right. You can't just gung-ho on the inside and hope that you'll have the braking line for the inside. You then got to think about the corner after that and the corner after that. When you make these overtaking moves, you can concede quite a lot of time by making the overtake, and then you hamper yourself for the next 3 or 4 corners as you get back into the rhythm. Every overtaking move at Senior Pro Kart level has got to be calculated, because yes, you make the overtaking move, but you cost yourself time in that move. So is it worth making the overtake, or do you slot in behind your opponent, work together and try and stay with the pack rather than make these overtakes? When you're in a battle of 8 or 9 karts in a line, then that's slightly different, but you know that you're going to lose a lot of time as a group by making these constant overtakes. But great battles all the way down that back straight. Looks like a little bit of a moment across the line as Danny Bean is in trouble here from Aaron Lord. Lord is trying to get through, so is Drabwell on McCarthy. And Jack Dunbobbin just inside the top 10. He's got problems from Mannion, Bright, Hall and Riley Bowen. So they're all very tight together. Love the fact that there are these magnificent trains within races here as kart after kart continues to duel away with their opponent. Bean, Lord, McCarthy and Drabwell very close together for P6, and then further back, that's Dunbobbin, Mannion, Bright and Hall. Looks like Bowen has dropped back now in the battle for 6th and the battle for 10th. There are so many great talents. Here comes James Drabwell, tightening up behind McCarthy. McCarthy already thinking about his bid on Aaron Lord. And as they go together, all 4 of them, they've got a 4-kart train behind them as well. For Dunbobbin, Mannion, Bright and Oliver Hall. A little bit of a run wide there. You can't afford to do that too often, Danny. There's a lot of talent right up your tail, and they will go for the overtake if you give them slight inches of opportunity. and they will die for that gap. It's every driver for themselves in this category, and certainly in Senior Pro Kart Extreme, you do not need to give an inch because they will take even less than that to create the gap. On the back straight again, a little bit of defensive tactician there from Conor McCarthy. Up on the inside of James Drabwell, just making sure that there's no room at the end still. And they go down the back straight together, trying to make them move their way further forward. But still, Alexander leads Lucas, Ludwell, Needham, Dawson, then Danny Bean, Aaron Lord, Conor McCarthy and James Drabwell. From Dunbobbin and Mannion, with Oliver Hall now having got ahead of Reese Bright, so he has made the overtaking move. Meanwhile, check out Zach Dawson. He's got the moves now. Ike Needham is being lined up here by the green machine. Checks over his right shoulder and he gestures to Zach Dawson. Don't overtake me, buddy. Let's go together. We can still catch the top three. I think Zach Dawson will be thinking, are you kidding? They're already about 2 seconds up the road from us. There's no way we're going to get our chance to get ahead now. So just let me take you. I'm going to be on your tail here all the way down this back straight. There's no point fighting me because I've got the pace. But as you can see for yourself, Mike Needham is definitely giving Zach Dawson a hard time of it as they run through. Here comes the train behind, and it's nearly a train of 8. Goodness me. Aaron Lord having got ahead of Danny Bean. So you've now got Lord, Bean, McCarthy, Drabwell, Dunbobbin, Mannion, Hall and Bright in a massive line together. And this is what I was telling you about earlier. Once you make that calculated move, you cost the whole group time, and then you get backed into the pack. We had a fantastic junior TKM race many, many years ago, where we had 5 karts become 9 karts, 9 karts became 13, 13 became 17, until we had about 23 karts, all battling for the victory. They just roll on onto each other. The more you make these overtakes, the more you back the pack up, and the more the concertina effect brings everybody into the race. So now we've got James Drabwell making his bid on McCarthy. But again, he's not going to make the overtaking move there because he knows that it's too high risk. If it goes wrong, then he's going to cost himself quite a bit of time in the attempt to try and move forward. Danny Bean still right there in P7 and can still get back on terms with Aaron Lord. But you can tell there that Lord was being held up a little bit there at the front of this queue. Because now that he's been released, he's been able to unlock a little bit of pace and put a bit of gap between himself and Danny Bean. So now McCarthy's thinking the same thing. Hang on a minute, you're a cork in the bottle here, and we've got lots of pent-up energy. We want to get ahead of you, sunshine. So right, left, then onto the back straight. You can see the urgency as well from behind James Drabwell. That is Jack Dunbobbin. He's been very frustrated recently. His race lasted about 12 seconds at Rowra when he didn't quite have the opportunity to go through before getting punted into a spin in the wet. Now he wants to try and get himself a decent top 10 finish here, and he's currently in P10. But now drivers are starting to get a little bit racy. Drabwell trying to make his moves there on Conor McCarthy. Back to the Needham and Dawson squabble. This is for P4, behind the leader Aaron Alexander, second Connor Lucas, and third George Ludwell. So still Needham versus Dawson. Back straight. God, Dawson's really taking liberties with those curves on the far side. He wants to make the move his own. Needham's being ultra defensive. They go onto the back straight. Dawson may want to make the bid here. He's got plenty of space around him. Oh, he tightens up in the braking zone, but he's not going to go for it. Not just yet. He's still got time to spend in this race making those moves. So you've got to be really calculated when you want to make that overtaking bid. We've only got a couple of laps left of this one, so it's not going to be easy to predict. And now on the inside line, that's the gap left open. Dawson dives in. Needham has left him a country mile, and that's enough for Zach Dawson to squeeze in and say, cheers, buddy. That'll be my place then. So Alexander leads Lucas, Ludwell, Dawson, and Needham. They go onto the back straight again. And is there going to be a return from Mike Needham? Well, too busy behind. We've got way too many more important things to look at. As we look at the top 5 down the back straight, it's still absolutely nose to tail for 6th position downwards. Lord, Bean, McCarthy, Drabwell, Dunbobbin, Mannion, all the way through as we go on to the last lap. It's been tasty in the midfield, but it's been quiet as a mouse for Aaron Alexander up front. He's just been ticking off laps in the lead. Needham still climbing all over Dawson. You can see them as they go through the first part of the lap. But Aaron Alexander, too many times this year, the Senior Pro Kart field have given him an opportunity to run the race to ransom. And this is exactly what he's able to do when he's got a clear track in front of him, when the tyres are working to his nature, and when he can just nail himself into the rhythm, that metronomic pace that we see time and time again from Aaron Alexander. Oh, it's all kicking off in the top 10 battle. Danny Bean losing places, and with no time to retaliate, that's really going to cost him a shot at the top 6. But here comes Aaron Alexander, victorious again, ahead of Connor Lucas and George Lutwell, with Zach Dawson almost level pegging with Ike Needham, who bangs his steering wheel in frustration. He can't believe he let that one go. Oh, and it's all getting very racy at the final bend as Lord comes home in front of McCarthy. But Aaron Alexander gets the win in front of Connor Lucas and George Ludwell from Zach Dawson, Ike Needham and Aaron Lord. Then James Drabwell, Jack Dunbobbin, Oliver Hall and Danny Bean. Connor McCarthy did cross the line in P6, but he got a 5-place penalty for overtaking under a yellow flag. So at the moment in the championship fight, John Hogan is still your championship leader, with Ike Needham and Aaron Lord gaining traction. In the British Sprint Championship, it is Carl Ruddock who's ahead of Zach Dawson and Rossi Costello. It's BWR time, and there's a distinct absence of John Nuttall. It's Mick Blancaspor and Alistair Tinker on the front row from Phil Waters and Oliver Greening. In junior, it's Brandon Edwards, Will Omar and Danny Elson. They'll all go together, and they will charge for turn 1 in unison. Off we go, and Mick Blancaspor immediately trying to get into the lead nice and easy, and he's been lost out already by Phil Waters, who gets to the second. Waters is going for the lead on the inside. He just gets the kart out a little bit too wide through the left apex, and Tinker now goes over the top, and there's a big concertina effect. Tinker in trouble. He just got a little bit too eager there in his bid to get ahead of Waters. So no John Nuttall, and Alistair Tinker hits self-destruct. Goodness me, the big guns in BWR are not in the top 5 halfway round lap 1. My goodness me, it's Mick Blancaspor's chance to run away and dance with it in the lead of this one here at Llandow. I wonder if John Nuttall is watching along at home, quietly smiling from ear to ear. Even when he's absent, Alistair Tinker is not able to get the job done so easily, as on the inside. This time Phil Waters does get a clean move. It's on Oliver Greening, but he will be so frustrated that he let the lead get away from him there. So Blancaspor is your leader. Edwards in second ahead of Omar, the 2 junior contenders. Then in 4th is now Phil Waters, having got ahead of Oliver Greening. And look in the background, if that's not Alistair Tinker, through into 6th position past Danny Elson, it won't be long till he gets there. So it's really exciting stuff then in the BWR seniors and juniors. Who'd have thought there'd be quite such a big shuffle of the deck halfway round the first couple of corners, as now Mick Blancaspor has got license to run away and hide in the lead. So Tinker has managed to get ahead of Danny Elson now, and we've got this magnificent squabble about to kick off. Brandon Edwards, who is the 56 but currently carries the green O plate on his card. That means he is the BWR Junior Open champion in the nation of Great Britain, and that means he can run the O plate, and he's ahead of Will Omar. So these two having a terrific squabble. 4th place is Phil Waters, and it is Tinker. So Tinker's got ahead of Oliver Greening. So not a big problem there for Tinker to get himself back into 5th position. So that works him as well ahead of 2 karts. He was 7th, he's now 6th and up to P5. So he's still got time to at least, I think, get himself into the top 2, but he's got a lot of time to try and gather up. His next target is going to be Phil Waters. And Phil Waters checks over his shoulder and goes, oh, I thought I'd got rid of Alistair Tinker, and he's right back on my 6 again. Goodness me, tough stuff. So Blancaspor through the left-hander. Edwards versus Omar in the victory battle for the juniors. And then we've got Phil Waters desperately trying to get away from a fired-up Alistair Tinker, who will not be happy that he got dispensed with in the concertina effect in the first couple of corners of this race. If we try and look back, we'll see just how tough it's going to be, though, for Tinker. He's got a lot of ground to make up. Not only has he got to get ahead of the number 6 of Phil Waters, but he's got to pull clear of him and then close up. Here he goes, down the back straight, and Alistair Tinker makes light work of it into P4. Runs wide on the exit, but has plenty of grip and smooth fluidity to pick it up again. So as they go through the horseshoe, Tinker is back in a 4th place. Now, can he catch Edwards and Omar before the end? And will their own battle give Tinker cause for concern? Because the more they battle, the more that's going to hold up the pace of this duel. So it could be very interesting. But Blancaspor looks like he's got the victory on a silver plate, and he didn't even need John Nuttall on the grid to help him do so. Mad scenes here at Llandow. not the spectacle we thought it was going to be in BWR. We've often found this year, though, that even though the grid numbers are not particularly high in this class, they still give us an amazing squabble. And we've certainly got one today. Blancaspor leading. Edwards is trying to pull away from Will Omar. And then Alistair Tinker in P4. Look back, and there is Waters. And then Greening and Elson having a nice little squabble over P6. Danny Elson in junior, Greening in senior. This is such a fabulous tussle. I love these karts. The Tillotson T4 chassis give us plenty of great racing, and this is exactly why. Just no holds barred, fast and furious. Elson trying to get level with Greening. Greening trying to make sure he's got space, but at the same time he wants to race him right around the outside, and he's going to drift onto the curb, and that's enough for Danny Elson to storm through on the inside line. Oh, the spirit of competition is alive and kicking in the BWR categories. Greening's got a great exit off the turn, though. He's going to go side by side with Danny Elson down the back straight, and he'll dive back through on the inside. But it'll be slow in, fast out for Elson. Can he get back in front? He dives through, and he's there again. Oh, this is what BWR is all about. It's the entertainment of racing these karts wheel to wheel. It doesn't matter how experienced you are. It doesn't matter how many years of racing you've done. I've known drivers start their racing career in the BWR classes, and I've known drivers who've been racing for 20, even 30 years, and they have such amazing battles in this category. It's a wonderful, no-nonsense, no-holds-barred thrash. That's exactly what it's supposed to be at this level of karting. Blancaspor still leading the way nicely. Edwards has pulled well clear of Will Omar. I'm surprised, actually, as side-by-side again. This time it is Greening on the inside of Elson. Elson's going to come and repeat the move again. Elson gets the move on the inside, but Greening forces it right round the outside of the horseshoe. And this time, the move is done. And Oliver Greening is in front. I'm not sure Danny Elson will get another look in easily here. He's going to try and cut back round sideways. He'll tuck back through again for the switch. Can you believe that? This is Elson versus Greening in P6 and 7 of the 7 runners in BWR. And it's still an absolute dogfight. It's still no holds barred racing. Well, brilliant stuff from the two men who are giving us a good show. Blancaspor, Edwards, Omar, Tinker, and then we've got Phil Waters over the line, and then it's these two, Danny Elson versus Oliver Greening, and it's the battle that just will not cease at the moment. They're still giving us plenty. Danny Elson fancying his chances. I don't care if you're in a different class to me. I can have you, no worries at all. Get out of my way. Sideways, the back end kicks out. There's a lot of torque in these karts. I've driven these, and they are very good racing machines. On the inside, Elson's going to go slow in, fast out, dives in. Lovely job. Elson gets the place again off Oliver Greening. And so Elson versus Greening, their battle continues. Now, it's been amazing watching these two duel. And from first-hand experience of racing these karts, juniors versus senior, it is a great show. Greening gets back to the inside of Elson, and he runs wide again for the third time in this race. He now has Elson diving back to the inside, and he picks up the pieces yet again. Wonderful racing between these two. It just doesn't stop. So Greening's going to have to try again. Incredible to think that the two guys at the very back of the field are giving us all the drama and all the excitement in this one, as Elson has now given himself the tiniest bit of daylight between himself and Oliver Greening. But Greening looks to be faster in a straight line, and Elson, of course, is a little bit more nimble and smoother perhaps in some of the corners, so that makes life a lot easier for him. But it's Blancaspor, Edwards, Omar, Tinker, Phil Waters, and then Elson versus Greening. I'm not sure Alistair Tinker is quite going to catch up to Edwards or Omar before the end of this race. Big mistake from Elson! Greening absolutely ready to take it from him. That is why you do not let the back end slip out like that, because your opponent will absolutely eat the road up and grab the position away from you. Big error from Danny Elson, but he's right back on it to go after Oliver Greening again. Well, this is exactly the kind of duel we love getting fired up about, and still they're at it. Further into the race, you can see for yourselves that Greening and Elson are just enjoying an amazing Sunday afternoon's battle in the Welsh countryside. as Elson again tries on the back of Greening. They come off the hairpin together. Elson getting a good run off the turn, Greening into the first horseshoe once again. Oh, this is so lovely to watch as they just keep on building and building the battle. Elson closing in again on Greening, the back end travelling a little bit too much for Greening at the moment. Elson might get a nice tuck in on the way through the right-hander. He's going to get the undercut. Greening not able to shut the door in enough speed to stop the move. Elson slides in. Thank you, sir. And they're side by side still as they come down to the next. This is Greening chops right round the outside of Elson. Lovely stuff as they go onto the back straight once again. Oh, I tell you what, that's why karting is the most fever-pitch form of motorsport on the planet. It doesn't matter if you're racing for the win or for the back, you will still have an opponent to go wheel-to-wheel with. Meanwhile, Mick Blancasport has been absolutely serene out front. There is Alistair Tinker we just saw, recovering, but Blancasport will take the checkered flag. There is Mick Blancasport. He crosses the line. Still these two are at it. Elson versus Greening. Incredible as Edwards comes through for the win in junior, and Alistair Tinker is going to finish in third, having got ahead of Will Omar. So it's a good comeback for Tinker. Fifth place will be Phil Waters, but who's going to get this between Elson and Greening? Senior versus junior. Senior round the far side. Greening kicks it out. Elson, it's going to be close, but it will be Elson. He just gets there in front of Oliver Greening. Mick Blancasport takes the win in senior from Tinker, Waters and Greening. Junior is clinched by Brandon Edwards ahead of Will Omar and Danny Elson. To conclude the programme, we'll bring you Formula Blue. Always great to welcome them back into the paddock. And we'll see Stuart Gray and Nigel Vickery on the front row from David Watson, Billy Thomas, Mike Bell, Dean Smithers, Graham Joseph, Ron Schoen, Robin Stoddart-Stones and Russell O'Neill. And we will go to starters' orders immediately here at Llandow. Good run to the first corner. Of course, they missed the horseshoe on the first lap because it's a rolling start. They'll take it again next time round. And as we start our way through these incredible apexes, it's a perfect launch away from Stuart Gray. The number 4 has got a decent run, but up the inside, there is the move from the O-plate. David Watts comes back into it and takes over the lead once again. Absolutely brilliant from David Watts. Stuart Gray just has to chase after him there in second position. He got a magnificent run off the turn. They go down the back straight and there's a yellow flag. It's a stationary yellow. That's for Graham Joseph, I think, who's got a mechanical problem. And there's a move on the inside line there. Was there an overtake under yellow flag conditions? Well, that will have to be investigated, but it looked to me as though we certainly had someone going for a move on the inside line there, but there is the confirmation. Graham Joseph, mechanical failure on the first lap. He stopped to a crawl just after the start line, and so there was a stationary yellow flag for him. But the O-plate, David Watts, is your leader, is on the inside. It's going to be a bold lunge here from Bell to try and get back through past Billy Thomas, who has been able to work his way into third position. A good charge forward then from Billy Thomas, trying to keep himself in that third place. Now that he's taken Bell and he's got himself into third position, he's not going to want to give it up easily. Watts is your leader, second is Gray, and up the inside, not yet. Well, Mike Bell thought he had another crack there at Billy Thomas for third place, but he's not going to launch in too hot. Nigel Vickery, spinning off! Nigel Vickery, what a disaster from the front row of the grid, and Nigel Vickery off in the hook. That is absolutely disastrous for him. So Nigel Vickery, a spin there after a very difficult start to the race. It now goes from bad to worse as he pirouettes around, and that's game over for Nigel Vickery. It was already going to be a difficult race for him, having dropped from second position down the order, but he certainly didn't need to end it that way. And that has unfortunately opened up the field a little bit. There's now daylight between the competitors. David Watts is your leader, Stuart Gray in second, Billy Thomas having a sturdy time of it in third place, but he's now got a bit of gap between himself and Mike Bell. And then of course it is Dean Smithers who runs in fifth ahead of Russell O'Neill up from the back. And then Ron Schoen and Robin Stoddart-Stones. Graham Joseph is out of the race, as we know, and unfortunately so too is the rather disappointed Nigel Vickery. So still the drivers give us a little bit more battling to come. There is Dean Smithers closing up on the 19 of Mike Bell, but this man on his Tony Kart, the O-plate, David Watts, is just disappearing. No worries at all for him, as he is looking to round out this 15-lap encounter in dominant form out in the lead. certainly does not need to be putting himself under too much pressure. Big dive up the inside from Smithers. Bell is going to try and get him back on the switcheroo, which he does. So Smithers not able to finish the move there on Mike Bell. But Mike Bell still doing a great race here in fourth place, and Smithers still with plenty of time to get back on him. Bell being defensive. Oh, Smithers had to think about it, didn't he? Through that first section, he really wanted the overtake, but he's not quite been able to make it work. And so now Bell is going to try and shut him down, but Smithers will have the move. Oh, he left the door wide open. You can't afford to give your opponent that much space, because Smithers able to deal with it nice and easily. And I'm not sure Mike Bell's going to get another look. Well, fantastic running all the way to the checkered flag for this man up front, David Watts, who is now cruising to the victory. It's been a very easy run for him in Formula Blue. He will come home to the victory. There is Ron Schoen, who will come through in 7th place. Sadly, we also had Robin Stoddart-Stones retiring. There's one final charge here for Russell O'Neill, who might get Billy Thomas, but the checkered flag is out for David Watts. He will get the victory in front of Stuart Gray and the sliding Dean Smithers. So Smithers tried to catch up, but he couldn't quite make it. And across the line, it will be Billy Thomas, just ahead of O'Neill. So it's a David Watts day up in front from Stuart Gray, Dean Smithers, Billy Thomas, Russell O'Neill, Mike Bell and Ron Schoen. Retirements for Joseph Stoddart-Stones and the unlucky Nigel Vickery, who could have had so much more from the front row of the grid today.
That's all the action from round 6, but join us again in September when we're back for round 7 from Jenson Button's favourite circuit. We'll see you then.